Welcome back to Season 3, Episode 6 of the Voicebox, the official podcast of the IHS Voice. This episode is the fourth and final part of our series, in which we interviewed different students from all four grades and asked them how they felt about in-person learning versus distance learning. For part 4, we're going to have staff writer Ananya again. This time, she's going to interview Kripa, who's a senior at Irvington. Stay tuned till the end of the interview, and hope you enjoy.
Hi guys, my name is Ananya and I'm a staff writer for the Irvington Voice. I'm a junior and with me is Kripa, who's a senior from Irvington. And today we're going to be talking about in-person and distance learning and our thoughts on the two types. So Kripa, first question. As a senior, how did your sophomore and junior years, kind of the body of high school, change compared to what you'd hoped for?
Well, in sophomore year, I was really looking forward to the Cold War project that we do in history. And that kind of got taken away because of COVID and we didn't get to cover it at all. And that was a really big disappointment. And on top of that, all the work I had put into WIP kind of just got washed away because nobody came to the final debates. For junior year, it wasn't as bad because distance learning was a lot more organized by that time. But I did still miss being on campus and interacting with people.
Yeah. And did you take AP classes during your junior year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for those classes, they tend to be a bit more difficult. So how prepared did you feel for the AP tests? And how did you feel taking the test online?
I felt pretty prepared. I do think the teachers did a good job of teaching the material while adjusting to a new schedule. And for the AP tests themselves, I did think that not being able to go back and check multiple choice was pretty annoying. But I do think that they tried their best to make it safe and secure for everyone to take.
Yeah, and is there anything that your teachers did to try and teach this difficult content online?
Most of my teachers had a lot more office hours where students could come and ask questions. And they focused a lot more on making outlines and notes for us so we can even study offline when we didn't have them.
Nice. Yeah, that's really important. And during lockdown, a lot of us had a lot of time to spend at home and our free time essentially increased. So how did you spend your time at home during lockdown?
Well, I guess I started reading and writing a lot more than I normally would have, which I guess is good preparation for AP language and college apps both. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, I guess I also started watching a lot of the shows that I had been meaning to catch up on for months.
Yeah. What shows?
I think mostly general anime and a couple K-dramas and C-dramas.
Nice. Yeah, for me, there was that entire period during distance learning where everyone was oh, let's bake bread. So I actually spent time with my sister and we made banana bread and sourdough bread. So that was pretty fun. So as you transitioned to school online, how much work did you get? And how was this compared to a normal year in school that you'd had before?
I think teachers have been kind of trying to shift to more handing stuff more digitally, as opposed to paper submissions. I think that's mostly because in the event that we do go back, they want to be able to transition seamlessly. Personally, I like that a lot because I don't like writing with my hands. I think it's a lot easier for me to type, especially for essays.
Yeah, especially for AP English. I forget how many essays you guys have to write a semester, but it must have been a lot easier to be able to type those essays online, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in a normal school year, what did you enjoy that you felt you missed during online and distance learning?
I think I really missed out on most was like yearbook, because a lot of yearbook depends on us being in person, like being there, taking photos and like capturing life at Irvington. And that was like really hard for distance learning because you're like having to like go around asking people to submit photos, and a lot of them like weren't responding often. So that was really a struggle. But I do think we came up with like a really good yearbook last year.
Yeah. So how exactly did your book work, given that, you guys couldn't take pictures of students in person? So how were you able to create a yearbook?
I'm more on the graphic design side, so I can't speak for everybody. But even though the photo people are working really hard to reach out to people to get them to submit photos, a couple of them had to like break quarantine and they went to take photos of like events happening at school, like a couple of sports practices, like closer to the end of the year.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. At least you guys got to, think of other solutions to still create a yearbook and still keep the school spirit running. So due to distance learning, a lot of students had to keep themselves motivated to pay attention in class and finish assignments. So how did you keep on top of your work?
Personally, I think all my teachers were pretty good about like having a set schedule on Google Classroom of what's due when. So I just trying to like get as much work done in one go, so I didn't have to think about that class, and have to like pull all-nighters trying to do my work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like school started a bit later than usual when we were in distance learning. So it was much easier because we were able to get more sleep, and that was nice.
Yeah.
And how were you able to pay attention in class? Learning through a screen is not the same as in person. At least for me, is it the same for you? Do you find any differences between the two types of learning?
No, it's pretty much the same for me, whether it's online or on distance learning. Paying attention is like kind of a struggle sometimes, but as long as you're motivated to learn the material and you're interested in what's being taught, I don't think it's that hard.
Yeah. So did you take like classes you were interested in and that's why you were able to focus more in class? Or what were some of the tactics that you used to make sure that you were able to give 100% attention to the teacher during your classes?
If the class and textbook, I usually try and read it ahead of schedule. So even if I did like start to like not pay attention, I wouldn't be screwed for later. And for other classes, I did like try and take notes while I was listening, so that since a lot of the lectures weren't recorded, I at least have like some way of remembering what the teacher was talking about.
Yeah, those are some really good tactics. And I think some of them are still applicable now. Like we could still read textbooks before to understand the content and be prepared for what the teacher is going to talk about in class.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And did you feel that you were equipped with the resources you needed to succeed during distance learning?
Yeah, I do think so. Like I said, the teachers like did their best to give us as close to a normal education as we could, and they like went like above and beyond in making sure we had the resources, like I said, with notes that helped us prepare for stuff like APA exams.
Yeah, and did they keep office hours outside? Because I know that the class length was shortened because of distance learning. So did they have office hours outside, especially in these AP classes, for you to come and learn more about the specific topics which you were struggling in?
Yeah, pretty much all my AP teachers had office hours because like even they were adjusting to like the new APA exam format. And like having extra office hours really helped because we could go and ask them about pretty much anything and they'd be right there ready to help.
Yeah, that's nice. And what were the good things about school online that you found interesting?
Well, for one, since everything was online, I was able to take like more dual enrollment classes at college because those are also online. So I didn't have to like commute to the college and back. So that was really interesting because I got to take courses that aren't like available at Irvington, but I'm still interested in.
That's really cool. And do you find like a difference between those college classes and the AP classes that are there at Irvington? Like how is the curriculum like in those college classes?
I think it really depends on the class, but I think AP classes are like good preparation for college. I know like for AP Physics C, Mr. Q gave us a test from when he taught at a community college. And that was really good because it helped me like get an idea of what college physics is like.
Yeah, that's like the entire point behind these exams. So it's really nice that your teacher was able to give you these community college like exams. Um, how was the vibe at these community college classes? I feel that's really unique that you got to be able to, like, still learn from these college classes and continue your learning despite um, it being all online.
I think there was really like a collective learning sort of vibe, I guess. Like there are a bunch of class discords like all over the place and people that are like helping each other out constantly. Like there's always at least somebody online ready to help if you had a problem with like the reading or the homework. And everyone was like super helpful to each other a lot. So I really like that.
Yeah, it's great to have that student community in schools and stuff because I think even despite the pandemic and everything, I feel like we still did have some school spirit and people still managed to connect with others despite the lack of physical interaction.
Yeah.
But what do you feel some of the disadvantages about school online were?
I do think that like getting in submissions was a little bit harder because sometimes my scanner would stop working and like there was a deadline and I'd be like frantically trying to like log on and send it to my computer before the like Google Classroom box went overtime. I know that was really a problem for like AP Calculus PC chunk tests, but Miss Chung was like really understanding, so that was great.
Yeah, at least in some of my classes, I remember that the teacher would, whenever we had like a test, he would give like 2 to 3 minutes for us to submit it. But sometimes, we have these Wi-Fi issues and tech issues in general, and so it becomes difficult. Did you experience some of these, and how did the teachers respond, and how were we able to fix some of these problems?
A couple of days we were having like construction near where I lived, so the Wi-Fi was like going in and out all the time. So then I just like loop man the teachers all the time, trying to send them my stuff. But they're really understanding about it.
Yeah, that's really important to have, and it's great that teachers were able to understand that this current situation that students were in, and I'm pretty sure they were also struggling with tech issues and being able to deal with all that online. Are there any other disadvantages you want to talk about other than issues related to technology?
Outside of school, I guess clubs really suffered.
Yes.
Because I know we weren't able to go like, to competitions and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's also like, pretty hard to like keep a bunch of members like over Zoom.
Yeah, for sure. And what clubs were you a part of? Just curious.
I was an officer for Science Olympiad during junior year, so I do think that we definitely had like a lot of problems with member retention during the pandemic. But I hope this year, like at least a couple more people will join, especially from freshmen.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that this is like a competitive science club, right? So how did you guys manage to transition from an in-person club structure to sort of online distance learning club?
We started looking for competitions that were being held online. And we found like a lot more variety than what we usually go to. Like some of them were being held like on the East Coast. So being able to like see what kinds of questions people on the East Coast are like dealing with, that really helped us make our team stronger.
Yeah, that's amazing because a lot of people usually think, during distance learning, learning is hindered and people are not able to learn as much. But given that you guys were able to compete with people across the nation, I think that definitely boosts the amount of learning and the amount of, knowledge that you get out of the club. So that's really good that you got to experience that. And how is the vibe at like tournaments compared to in person? Like,
there's definitely a lot more going on in like our messenger DMs. People are like congratulating each other all the time, but it's pretty much the same at in-person tournaments as well. Like, there's really a big like family vibe in Science Olympiad, and we hope to bring that back this year.
Yeah, that's really cool. And now that we're in person, I'm pretty sure Science Olympiad is able to host at least some tournaments in person. So people can get to take tests under proctors and stuff.
Yeah.
So how did like the proctoring system work online for these competitive clubs? Because I'm pretty sure at competitions, someone needs to be able to watch over the people who write these tests.
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar to how stuff like proctorial works, where you're not allowed to like click out of the exam box. And for stuff where you have to like actually build something, they make you show it over Zoom as opposed to like recording it and then playing it back, so you only have your best shot. It is like a lot harder to prevent cheating, but I do think that, again, like the AP exams, they did their best with what they had.
Yeah, that's really cool that your club is still able to run despite distance learning and all the challenges that we as an entire school community faced. And so now I'm going to transition more into in-person questions. So how did you feel when you found out that we would be back in person?
Well, I was pretty excited. I've been like in and out on the campus like all summer because of yearbook. But like being able to come back, I think is pretty great. I hope we don't have to go back and that everyone's responsible about COVID.
Yeah, for sure. And do you feel like your classes are harder now? What are some differences that you see now that you're like back in person? Are there any adjustments that you've had to make?
I guess this is less about COVID and more about block schedule, but classes do feel a lot longer now. So like you said about how it's hard to like pay attention on Zoom, I guess it's hard to pay attention for like an hour and 30 minutes every day straight.
Yeah, because now they have those flex days where classes are so much longer than they used to be. Do you feel like the workload has been significantly higher compared to distance learning?
I don't really think so. It's pretty much the same. And for some classes, I might even say it's less than it was over distance learning. Like for AP Physics C, we're not having a lot of homework and there's a lot of emphasis placed on what we do in class, like with labs.
Yeah, that's really cool that, the workload hasn't changed that much and you're able to smoothly transition into in-person. It's great that you're able to experience that. So, but how are you able to smoothly transition to school in person? And what are some essentials that you keep for in-person school?
I think some of the essentials would be backup mask in case I take mine off and forget to put it back on and end up losing it. ID card, because I spend a lot of time in the library, and I know that Ms. McCauley is always asking us to check in, so we can keep track of who's coming in and going out. Besides that, I don't think there's a lot more. Like I said, a lot of teachers are going digital, so a lot of the textbooks and stuff are online, which is good because then I don't have to like lug around a huge bag full of like AP art history textbooks and AP physics textbooks at the same time.
Yes, that's definitely true. I totally feel you. It's so great that these textbooks are online because they're so much easier to access. And after like 1.5 years of distance learning, I feel like my experiences working with technology has improved and I'm more comfortable, you know, looking up a textbook online now compared to just like reading it um, in a paperback version.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah. So, what were some things that you were nervous about coming into in-person learning?
Like I said, I wasn't sure how responsible everyone was going to be about COVID, about wearing their mask all the time. But I think most students at Irvington are doing a pretty good job of like staying safe, at least on campus. Like I don't see a lot of people like taking their masks off like just because. Like it's only for essentials like eating.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great thing that everyone is taking the situation more seriously and people are keeping those masks on. And given that the COVID cases at Irvington are really low right now, hopefully it stays that way, since flu season is coming. So hopefully COVID cases continue to stay low and we're still able to go to school in person.
Yeah.
So, how has your routine changed? And what are some things that have changed from online to in person school and in person school before the pandemic to now?
Compared to online, I'm getting up a lot earlier, mostly because of the commute. But in comparison to like before the pandemic, it's a little bit later again because they shift times. For routine, I used to stay like after school at the library like really often before the pandemic. I can't do that as much now because they shortened the hours. I'll like completely understand like why. I also stay after school for clubs pretty often, but again, a lot of them have shifted like off to Zoom, mostly for social distancing because I know a lot of members will show up for stuff like math club and computer science club.
Yeah. And I've noticed that you've mentioned going to the library a lot during this interview. So, is that a place you usually like to hang out during school?
Yeah, Mr. College is really helpful for stuff like Quest, which I've like as a senior I've been really focusing on.
Yeah, that's really great. And, during distance learning, how exactly did the library work? Were you still able to get textbooks and books from the library to read for fun and study?
Yeah, that's pretty much the same before and after the pandemic. Like I said, the main thing that's changed would be the scanning ID card before you come in for like contact and trace.
Okay. Yeah, that's great that, the library is open and people were still able to get books during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, how do you think your teachers have transitioned from online to in-person school? And do you think that they've been doing well in terms of this transition?
I think they've been doing pretty well. Like for AP Physics C, I had Mr. Q last year and again this year. Last year for AP Physics 1, this year for C. I think he's been really excited about being able to do labs with us again. Because like there was a week where we just did straight labs. And it was really fun because we got to like play around with electricity. For other teachers, like I said, they're shifting more to digital submissions. I think that's great because saving paper and it's easier to like keep everything in one place.
Yeah, those are some great points that you make. And what would you like to see more from them though, if anything?
It's kind of hard to think of anything right now, but I guess I wish they'd let us like take a break during block days, like in the middle, just so you can like refresh our brains. I know Mr. Q does that. It would be kind of nice if other teachers did that also.
Yeah, for sure. And I noticed that you said that now you guys are able to do labs, and I think that's really important, especially for science courses. So now that you have this lab experience, do you feel like your interest in the subject has increased in these like science subjects?
Yeah, I'm definitely a lot more interested in physics, like especially because of the labs, because that's one of the most fun parts.
For sure. And I think that concludes this interview. Thank you for all your answers. I think you had some really good points for each one of my questions. So thank you so much, Kripa, for coming here and sharing your thoughts on distance learning and our transition into in-person.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.